besties, you are welcome back once again to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate you. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing with you on how I made this very beautiful trending short Bubu Kaftan dress with a stylish V neckline and fringe at the sleeves. Alright guys, so if this feels like what you're interested in, then let's get right into it. So these are the materials I'm working with. I'm working with this Ankara fabric and it's 2 yards 10 inches, and this other black material is a bridal satin and it's half yard, and then this fringe, this is 1 yard of fringe, and then this is another 1 yard of fringe, making 2 yards. So I'm using each yard for each of the sleeves, and the length of this fringe is 7 inches. So now you have to fold your fabric into two, make sure that this name band is facing each other like this, and then you're going to fold over, making it into 4 folds. And the reason why we are folding it into 4 folds this way is because we're going to be cutting both the front and the back together. So now we start by cutting the necklines, and we're going to start by cutting the back neckline. So for the back neckline, we're going to come in by 3 inches, which is the wideness. So we're going to mark 3 inches here, and then you're going to come down by 1 inch for the depth of the back neckline. So mark your 1 inch here, and then you're going to connect from that 1 inch mark to the 3 inches mark to form our back neckline, just like this. And then the next thing to do is to mark the front neckline. So for the front neckline, we're going to be coming down by 7 inches, and we're going to mark our 7 inches mark here. Then we're going to connect from the 7 inches mark to that 3 inches mark wideness, and here is the front neckline. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to determine the shoulder, and then you're going to divide the shoulder into 2 equal halves, and then mark it. For me, my shoulder is 15 divided by 2, that's 7.5. I'm going to mark my 7.5 here. After that, I'm going to measure and determine the length of my sleeve. The length of the sleeve I want to use is 16 inches. Remember, we're going to be adding a 7 inches fringe, so we're going to deduct that 7 inches, and then the remaining we're left with is 9 inches. So I'm going to mark my 9 inches here. So this is my 9 inches mark, and then I'm going to add 1.5 inches sewing allowance to that. I'm going to explain to you later in the video why I added 1.5 inches sewing allowance to the sleeve. Now on the point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and here it's going to serve as my shoulder slope, and I'm going to connect from that 1 inch mark into the shoulder line, into the shoulder mark that I had earlier. I'm going to connect it like this and into the shoulder mark. So from this point of the shoulder slope, I'm going to come down by my shoulder to bust point measurement, which is 10.5. I'm going to mark my 10. I'm going to mark it here, and then I'm going to measure what I have on my shoulder line here, everything sum total what I have. I'm going to mark it here also, and then I'm going to connect the line together to make into a straight line, and here is the sleeve line. So on this bust line here, I'm going to determine the widest part of my body circumference. So if it is your hip that is the widest part, you're going to be using your hip measurement, and if it is your bust that is the widest part, you're going to be using your bust. But for this particular person, a bust and a hip are the same measurement, so I divided that by 4, giving me 10. Then I'm going to add 5 inches extra for the freeness, because this dress is a free dress, and 1 inch sewing allowance. So now I'm going to come down from my shoulder to mark my hip. Where my hip is, I've marked it there. Then the overall measurement I have on this bust line, I'm going to measure it on the hip line, and then I'm going to measure the same thing on the hem of this dress like so. So basically that is what I have, and I'm going to make this into a straight line. So if my hip circumference is the larger part of my body, I'm going to be using my hip circumference to mark on both the bust line, the waistline, and the hem. Okay, now the length of this dress is 38 inches, and I added 3 extra inches for the sewing allowance. And why I added 3 inches extra is because whenever I'm making a kaftan or a bubu, I like the hem of my dress to be 2.5 inches. So I'm going to be adding 2.5 inches as the hem allowance, and the remaining ½ inch I'm going to be joining the shoulders by the remaining ½ inch. So that is why I added 3 inches extra allowance to the length of this dress. Okay, 2.5 inches for the hem, and then 1 inch for joining of the and then ½ inch for joining of the shoulder. Now on this line, just come down by 2 inches, and then connect that from your sleeve down to that 2 inches, because our sleeve has to be curved, not pointed. So just connect from that 2 inches up to the sleeve, just like this, and then we're done marking out our measurement. So the next thing for us to do now is just to cut this out. Starting from the necklines, you're going to be cutting the necklines, the front and the back neckline, and then the shoulder, and then the sides, and then you're going to be cutting out the sleeve of this. And here is the front panel, and here is the back. So we're going to set this aside. We're going to be working on the stylish v-neck that we have in front. So here is my fabric, and it's folded into two, which means is into double folds, just like this. And then the measurement I used for the wideness, this is 8 inches, which is half of my shoulder measurement, 7.5, and then I added ½ inch extra sewing allowance. And then the length is 16 inches, which is the length of my shoulder down to my waist. So here this is 8 inches by 16 inches. And now I'm going to place my front panel on it, just like this, and I'm going to be tracing this out like I'm cutting a facing. It's not as if I want to cut a facing for this front panel. So you can secure it down with your pin so that it doesn't move around, and then cut it at the shoulder line, and then cut it at the front, just like as if you're cutting the facing. And here it is. You've already cut out the facing of this front panel, and now we're going to be cutting out that V shape that it has. So now to mark, we're going to connect from one point to this other point like this, and we're going to connect this in a straight line. So just make a straight line there, and this is the, so here is the V shape. This is the V shape that it has. This is the stylish V shape that it has. So now I've gone ahead to add my interfacing to this to make it stronger, and then to make it stronger and more beautiful. So and then I folded in ½ inch with my iron, and this is to make my work much more easier and neat. So now I'm going to be placing the right side of this fabric, this material, this black material, on the wrong side of my Ankara fabric, just like this. And then I'm going to secure it down with my pins, and I'm going to go back to my sewing machine and stitch it down as the necklines with ½ inch, just like the way you see that I drew the chalk. So I'm going to be sewing it down like that. So here it is. I'm going to have to stitch it down with my sewing machine, and this is what it's looking. Please remember to notch, just remember to notch on all those sides, so that when you turn it over, it can lay properly without having any folding or any bump anywhere. So remember to notch properly. Now we're going to be turning it over onto the right side of my fabric, just like so. So I'll advise that when you want to do this, take it to your ironing board and make sure you use your iron to press this down. Okay, it gives you a neat and it gives you a neat finishing, just like that. Now you have to make, after ironing, now please make sure that this pointing, so you can also use your hemming gum, all right, to secure this down before taking it over to your sewing machine to stitch down. Okay, it makes your job much more easier and neater. And then make sure that this pointing effect, this pointing edge here is directly on the midpoint of your fabric. To get the midpoint, you can just fold your fabric into two and then iron. So that midpoint, that line you're going to get, make sure that this pointing effect is laying directly on that center line. Okay, it's laying directly on the center line of your fabric, like so. So guys, I've gone ahead to do this, and I've made sure when you're stitching this, make sure to stitch this extra black fabric at the tip, just like this. Stitch it down at the tip. It's going to give your work a very nice and neat finishing. Okay, so now I've done that. The next thing we're going to do is to work on the back neckline. So for the back neckline, I already cut this little piece of fabric. Now I'm going to fold it up, place my black back panel on it, and I'm going to be cutting out the facing, starting from the shoulder and then cutting out the facing of the back, just like this. So now, sorry, my camera didn't capture this, but I'm just going to give it a curve, give the facing a curve, just like this. And then I'm going to be placing the facing, the right side of the facing on the right side of my main fabric, just like so. And I'm going to stitch it down with ½ inch at the neckline. Before I stitch it down, I'm going to be folding this side, and then I'm going to be using my hemming gum to fold in this. Just give it a little fold, and if you don't have an hemming gum, you can as well use your sewing machine, just stitch it. So now I've gone ahead to use my hemming gum to fold this in. The next thing I'm just going to do is to hold this facing down with a pin onto my main fabric, and then I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and stitch it down at the neckline. So So guys, here it is, I've done that, and I'm notching. Always remember to notch because this is the curved area, so that you're not going to have any bump or any fold there. So you can as well use your iron to iron this out, so that it can give you a very neat finishing. So here it is. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to place the right side of the back panel on the right side of the front panel, like so, and we're going to be joining it together at the shoulders. So now just turn on your facing just like so, making sure that the front panel is in between the facing and the back. So just like this. So do it the other side also, turning your facing like so, making sure that the front panel is in between, and stitch down with half of an inch. So here it is, you have done that, and this is what you can see how neat this came out. This is, I always love when my job is neat. All right, so you can see how neat it is, both the front and the back necklines. So the next thing we're going to do now is to be working on the sleeves, and please remember to stitch down the facing to the back panel. You can use your hemming comb, and also you can use your sewing machine to do that. Now remember that I added 1.5 inches extra allowance to the sleeve, so this is why I did that. I always like my sleeve to have a volume. So now I'm going to be folding it into double folds like this, and it's going to make my sleeve it's going to make it thick, and also it's going to give volume to the sleeve just like this. So I'm going to fold in into double folds just like this. You can as well use your hemming gum to do this, and if you don't have an hemming gum, you can as well use your machine to stitch this down. All right, but when you use your hemming gum, it makes your work neater, okay, and then easy. So now I've gone ahead to do that, and I used my hemming gum to gum this, to stitch it down. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be placing my fringe on it, but before then I'm going to mark. Remember that we added 1 inch at the sides for the sewing, so I'm going to be marking out 1 inch on this sleeve like so, on this side, and then on the other side also of the sleeve like this, I'm going to mark 1 inch also. Okay, so that is the sewing allowance, the stitching allowance. So in between those 1 inch, I'm going to be attaching my fringe just like this, from 1 inch mark on this side to the other 1 inch mark on this other side. So I'm going to place my fringe, and if you want your fringe at the sleeve to be very full, you can as well. This is just like 2 layers. You can as well make it 3 or 4 or 5 layers, depending on how full you want the fringe to be at the sleeve. So just stitch it down and do the same thing also for the other side of the sleeve. All right, just stitch this down like this, from 1 inch, from the 1 inch mark to this other 1 inch mark. So here it is. I've gone ahead to do that, and you can see how it's looking. It's how very neat and beautiful it is. Now the next thing we're going to do now is to stitch down the sides of this Bubu kaftan dress. Now remember that we deducted that 1 inch, so that 1 inch that we marked on the sleeve. So from that 1 inch mark, we're going to be stitching down from that 1 inch mark onto the hem of this dress. Okay, from that 1 inch mark down to the hem of this dress. I'm going to do that also for this other side. From the 1 inch mark that we marked out earlier, we're going to be stitching down all through to the hem of the dress. Now after you must have stitched down the sides, the next thing we're going to do is to hem this dress. All right, remember that I added 2.5 inches extra allowance, and that is because I want the hem of my Bubu dress to have a volume. Okay, when you do it like this, it gives volume to the hem of your Bubu or your kaftan dress, and it makes it come out very, very beautiful. All right, so this is 2.5 inches, and just folding half of an inch all through like so, so that you're going to be left with 2 inches. All right, so I'm going to be doing that all through at the hem of the dress just like this. So now guys, I've gone ahead to join at the shoulder, at the sides, as you can see, with 1 inch, and I've gone ahead to hem also I'm gonna to hem the dress like so. You can see how neat and beautiful our dress is. Even if you're making this for a client, you can see how neat and how properly laid this is. All right, so now this is the outside part. You can see how our v-neck came out so beautiful. You can see also our fringe is laying. You can see it's straight, is laying very neat, very it's proper, is neat, and is very, very straight. All right, so this is how I like my job to be, very neat and then very beautiful. So you guys, we've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed my teaching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, and also if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, please just tap on the subscribe button, and it's totally free. To subscribe on my channel here is free. YouTube is not going to charge you. YouTube is not going to request for any dime from you. All right, to subscribe here on my channel is free. Okay, so hit on the subscribe button, and also just tap on that bell icon beside the subscribe button, so that whenever I post another new video, you're going to be the first person to get notified by YouTube. All right, this is going to do you that great favor by hitting on the subscribe button, and also tapping on that bell icon just beside it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Till I see you in my next video, give me a thumbs up, and bye.